no
we'll
problem.
go from there. Okay, so how open do you feel China is taking on board, you know, international standards, best practices, that kind of thing?
Well, one, very open. So today, actually, in my presentation, I looked at ISO 45001, which is the safety standard or safety management standard. And if you walk around Pro Light and Sound, I think 50% of the stands have ISO 45000 certification for that standard in particular. Right. Yet a lot don't. So people want it. I think people are learning. You know, I think there's this need for education, right. But I think at a government level, they're really trying to push industry to actually, you know, learn more international standards. But I think the key thing with China at the moment is they're actually developing their own standards. And I think the whole idea is where we work for a British standard, BS standard or a ANSI standard. I think the end goal with China is to have a China standard that is parallel with an ISO standard. You know, and some are there, but I think that's where the mindset is at the moment is, you know, China is probably the #1 manufacturer for our industry around the world. I guarantee every piece of AV equipment has something in it from China. So I think that's sort of where their mindset is. It's, yes, they need it. Some have it, some don't have it, but the ones that don't have it tend to be the companies that are, for the last 20 years, have been domestically focused, you know, and they haven't really looked at the international market. But now they've turned up to Pro Light and Sound, wanting to focus on an international market, and have realized, okay, there's a few things we need to work with and improve to get to that level.
Okay, so it's an ongoing process of education and building, and as you say, new standards potentially being formulated in the future. Okay,
so we work. I mean, if you understand international standards, the old safety standard was 18001, which was an old ISO for safety. You can go online all around the world, and I guarantee 50% of the companies probably still have their certificate up for 18001, where 18001 became obsolete in March. You know, so I think from a China perspective, I think certain things they're on the same level as internationally, where the SEMs, businesses are still, some have got it, some haven't got it, but still open to do it. But it's just, you know, that whether it's a budget thing, whether it's a time thing, or whether it's an educational thing.
So going back to what you were just saying about sort of being in the region and things like that, have you been able to been involved in any events in APAC this past year and a bit? So
in this past year, last year, I worked with a UK company for health and safety called TESS, the Event Safety Shop. So they're behind Glastonbury. They do some of the other major festivals. So I am their guy for Southeast Asia and China. Sort of, I help them projects here because of the virus. They can't travel out here. So last year we worked with a esports event called League of Legends.
Okay, yes.
Riot Games, League of Legends in Shanghai. It was the largest event in the world for last year. So we brought 300 foreigners through quarantine into Shanghai. You know, we brought, you know, companies out of the UK, companies out of America, rental gear from all over the world, because the level of technology, you know, half was in China and the other half wasn't here. You know, so a lot of the Chinese rental companies collaborated with, you know, the international companies, and they all came together. So that was, yes. So there's that. At the moment, I'll talk about the projects, but I have NDAs, so I can't mention too many names. So we have a client that's building some features for FIFA. So it's an architectural feature. So a lot of the basic constructions in China. We work with a large American rental house. So all their truss and rigging, we do all the QC and QA for. So we make sure it meets standard and goes out. And then a whole bunch of music festivals. I'm making T-shirts. So, you know, so really there's a few things on. But from safety perspective, there's that. I do a little bit of production management, which is the other side. So we have a theme park that may come up soon. You know, from a audio visual to animatronic side in terms of project management. So yeah, there's lots of stuff here. I mean, trade shows there. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I was in Shanghai doing the Shanghai Auto Show. So we had a contract with, it's really bad, I forgot, Audi and Continental. So Audi, because their team couldn't fly in from Germany. So we picked up, you know, the boots on the ground sort of project. It was great. You know, it's a good experience. So yeah, so there's sort of, you know, the best way I'm a bit of a bridge. And that's how I set my company up is, you know, the foreign business that wants to come to China, whether it's a live event, manufacturing, I be that person in the middle to help them, the right factory, the right connection that want to expand business internationally. So give them a little bit more things on international standards and, you know, after service care, which is a really big one, stuff like that. So that's sort of the type of stuff we do. So,
I mean, not to say that you're capitalizing on what's gone on over the last year, but I would assume therefore that from what you're saying, you've made more connections and more business with companies that you might not have ever had a relationship with prior to what happened.
Now it's a little bit different. They can't travel, so for business continuity, they need another way to keep the business going. And now they've discovered it's a little bit cheaper just to pay a local and constantly fly their team back and forth and hotels and accommodations. So some of them are like, oh, why didn't we try this a long time ago? You know, and then some of them are, well, you know, this is just short term. So, you know, but really that changes from business to business.
But you'd like to think that there'll be some contracts that are extended because of what you've done.
Most of my contracts are ongoing. So probably 70% of them we're on a month-per-month payment, month-per-month deal, and you know when it ends, you know. But a lot of them are project-based, one-off products. So we're going to make this. It's going to take 4 months. Okay, we're going to make we need this item. So you know, how much time is that going to take? It's not there's lots of work, but it's not a constant one client. So there's probably 10 clients, but all circling around, you know, starting and stopping at different times. So.
Gosh, you must have a very big spreadsheet keeping everything sort of in order.
I've got a team in the background that's quite helpful.
Yeah,
that helps. I mean, my Chinese skills are, you know, in Chinese we say "mama hu hu," it's so. You know, I know the basics. But yeah, you know, it's China is. Look, I've been here maybe 8, nearly 9 years, and it took 5 years of building relationships to get where I am now. First 5 years, work was, you know, minimal. You know, maybe 1 job, 2 jobs a year, small ones, and the rest was just chasing work. But in Chinese culture, it's about building relationships. So, you know, and that helps. No different from Pro Light and Sound. The reason this is quite a successful show, and it's probably the #1 show, is because they built the right relationships from the beginning. They've built good relationships with government and industry, you know, to keep, you know, more sustainable. So.
No, they've done a great job, and I was just saying to Judy before speaking to you, just so pleased that it's been able to take place, because it's a real flag, isn't it? I think for the industry that we've got.
And this year is really good. I mean, it's really the level of digital stuff out there, like high tech stuff, is amazing. There's some really cool things, and they've got this new light, artistic light type, you know, attraction. You know, for the I would call lighting designers or light artists. That's awesome. You know, and so the direction they're going is really good. You know, and I think some of their future planning that I've heard is also, you know, the right direction of where the world is at the moment.
Do you quite enjoy having a wander around the aisles and?
You know, and it's really good. Like the best one is, especially with this show, because the first one I came to Pro Light and Sound was back in 2011.
Right.
So first one, 2011, I was working in a casino in Macau. So we were doing an installation in a casino. So they shipped me up here to, you know, look at this trade show and you know, learn and see what production stuff was there, and fell in love with it. And I guarantee there's 3 stands that are here today that I still remember from
That
2011.
time.
Yeah,
Lovely.
you know, and that says something about the show.
Yeah.
You know, you're having that, you know, I've been to trade shows, you know, different industries where one year it's, you know, 600 stands, the next year it's 600 stands, and where's everyone from last year? You know, because companies come and go. But here, the retaining stands is something they do really well. Like, you know, after this, I've got, you know, tonight I've probably got 3 different dinners to go to with, you know, those regular stands that have come for the years, you know, what's going on, what's happening overseas, stuff like that. So yeah, it's good. It's actually really, really good thing to see.
No, I think they've, as we were saying, they've done a very good job on retaining that, you know, that customer loyalty and things. But you can only do that if you're, you know, they're getting the right people through the doors, and they've worked very hard, I think, in terms of, you know, the visitor, you know, the visitor experience, and each year the offerings and you know, are better and better.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge in China too is with the international market, getting foreigners in is really hard. Like trying to get a visa to get into China at the moment is almost impossible, you know. But so far, I've counted a fair few foreigners walking around. I mean, not 4 of them I brought in through my business, but on the, you know, me running from where I was speaking to here, like, oh, you're a foreigner, or you're a foreigner, and I like, so yeah, so people are here, you know, and I think it's good. Yeah, and I think it's this change a little bit from being, you know, they still focus on entertainment, you know, that side of audiovisual, but this direction they have at the moment with some of this high-end technology, conference systems, that level, I'm seeing a lot more people come in, and like, you know, the guys that, you know, I've met this Russian company, they've got 5 or 6 staff that are loving it, you know, because they make stuff for the Russian market, and they're like, this is so much better. You know, they've been to other shows, but they do integration. So for here, the best answer I got is there's people that always speak English at these stands at Pro Light and Sound, and that they technically get it. There's actually someone who actually, not just a pop-up salesman. So this is some of the really good comments that I've got for the last few days from some of the people that have come in. So, you know, so it's good. You know, so it still has that international element. You know, we may not have, because of, you know, it's out of our control.
Yes.
But those in the business that are in China, they've come around. You know, they're here. Like some guys out of Germany yesterday that I caught up with. You know, there's the Russians. Got a guy out of Denmark that's been popping around. You know, looking at things. So yeah, there's interest here. You know.
Oh, that's great to hear, because well, you know, I was there 2 years ago, and you know, really looking forward to coming back next year, and you know, because you know, over the past 5 years of going, just really impressed with how it has grown and developed. So missing it, but nice to hear the feedback, definitely. So back to our little questions. Do you think COVID has changed the face of event safety for good?
Yes. Okay. In a good way.
In a good way. Good.
Really in a good way. You know, being in the UK and Australia, both of us, safety's always been at a focus. You know, health and safety, you know, there's government departments, there's lots of enforcement. We're in China, because it's so big, every province has its own rules and regulations. So when you move around, things change. But I think because of COVID, you know, people actually now see the fact that there's lives involved. People can die. My family's died. My friends died. You don't really hear too much of the person who falls off the scaffold. You know, unless the news advertises. So I think due to the media and the awareness and the outcomes, I think people have now really thought a little bit more about the health side of it. So I don't want to get into accidents, it may be more medical. So, you know, I think in some of the projects I'm working about, it's more, we have a doctor on site, we have first aid on site. What are the procedures? How do we manage this? You know, so, which is a really good start. Because for me, you know, in the past, trying to get that level of medical on a site was, well, we don't have problems. We've never had an accident. It's a headache, you know, like why spend the money? Now they're doing it. But the advantage is once you have the medic on site, well, someone falls out of the roof. If there's an accident, we're covered. There's actually someone doing it. So it's sort of maybe indirectly, it's helping, but I think, it has made some big changes and made, it's more in the word health and safety, more towards health. Now I call it health management. I think that side has increased.
The last question was about your next project and what it entails, but as you said earlier, you're under NDA for quite a lot of these, so maybe you can't actually...
No, the one I can talk about, the next big one we have is a game with, so there's a game called League of Legends. It's owned by a company called Riot Games. Yeah. Riot Games is owned by Tencent, which is the guys that own WeChat and stuff like that. So there is the grand finals in China again for the League of Legends. So the show we did in Shanghai last year is again in China this year, but it's in 5 cities. So we'll do Shanghai, Guangzhou, Beijing, and with the grand final in Shenzhen. So it's, so it's on again, but it's twice the size because now it's a touring show in that sense, and lots of stuff going on, So the guys behind that are currently in Iceland, so they're doing what they call the Midsummers. When that finishes next week, then it'll all be guns blazing for pre-production planning for China.
So when does it kick off in China then?
September, October, end of September, October, and the grand finals November, end of October, beginning of November. So we've probably got 2 or 3 months of pre-planning and then straight into the show.
Yeah, wow.
And then, like I've got 3 projects for the Winter Olympics. So lots of corporate activations, pop-up stands here and stuff like that. So that's also surfacing. Because that's around the way. I told you I worked with the Asian Games in Indonesia back in 2018. So it was health and safety for that opening ceremonies. That's again in China next year as well. So they have the Olympics. They have the Asian Games in Hangzhou. They also have the first Asia FIFA Cup, which is not the World Cup, but the Asia Cup. It's another team. It's another cup, but it's not the big one. But it'll be like the second biggest one. So in sporting world next year, 3 big shows all in the same year. So those communications are started. So those I'm all involved with. But what am I doing? How am I doing it? That hasn't started yet. No, I haven't seen a plan. Like I know I'm doing stuff, but there's just no plans and no details. So,
that will all become clear in the following weeks.
I have another show on. Is this just between is this just us, or is this going to be streamed?
At the moment it's just us, and then they will edit it.
So if you want to do another one, so this is a volunteer job. It's not a paid job. But in Hong Kong next year is the Gay Games.
Oh.
So it's basically the Gay Games have been running for years. Think of the LGBT sporting teams that weren't accepted due to different reasons into different sporting events. So what they do now is a community event. They get all the LGBT teams from around the world, and they do it every 4 years and come to a country. So the last one was in Paris. The year before that, it was in Chicago. I think it's been in the UK before. I can't remember. It's a community event. It's not big, but so I am looking after safety and risk on that. As a consultant, just checking paperwork and stuff like that. So that's on. I got this job because when I was in Australia, I used to look after Mardi Gras, which is their version. It's a gay and lesbian parade, but a million people show up and they shut the Sydney down. So it's like London Pride. It's not like this stroll in the park. It's a lot of stuff. So
full on.
So that's on. So which is it has it's different ways to look at it. It's and it's happening and everyone's allowing it to happen. So, but it also has its challenges. And then in here we're talking audio visual. I do work in sustainability or event sustainability. So with a couple of the trade shows, it's like carbon footprints. We look at that type of stuff. But that's another whole world altogether. But important to have to keep that in the back of the mind.
Wow. Well, certainly no resting on laurels. It sounds like it, but I mean, it must be a lovely. It's very different. I mean, in terms of what you're working on, and I mean, yes, obviously some stuff is, you know, the route is the same, but different teams, different people, different cities, that kind of thing. So
yeah,
nice and varied.
I mean, yeah, and that's what I like. That's why I love this country, because one day I'm waking up, I'm doing safety stuff. Then 3 days later, I'm out doing sourcing. Then 2 days later, I'm sitting in a room with, you know, government officials who are planning to do some major event and want some information. So, you know, so it's good. And then suddenly I turn up to a trade show, you know, and then I'm doing this, you know. So this is actually why I love it. It really keeps me busy over here. This country is so big. You know, yes, we all know it's big, but when you're actually living here, it's really big. And everyone thinks, you know, I know there's other people listening on this, everyone thinks Mandarin is the key to China, like as a language, it's the main language. But in China, every city has its own dialect. It's no different from, you know, your Manx and Manchester, you know, I don't want to get into it. It's Scousers, it's got all that. You know, there's the Shanghai language, the Guangdong language, the Beijing language. And the thing I love is I'm not working for foreigners. I don't, you know, most of the time I'm working with local companies. So when you try to learn Chinese here, you're not learning Chinese sometimes. You're either learning Shanghaiwa, Beijingwa, you know, Cantonese, you know, so it's fun, you know. And when you think you know a word, then you don't really know the word because it's some other dialect. But yeah, so there's lots of fun here, you know.
Well, listen, thank you very much for you know, talking to us today. Really enjoyed it. And
I mean, I'm happy you can get my email off the team here if you want to keep in contact, you know, Skype or something like that, or team. Happy to help.
I would love to be able to feed back to our editor and see whether or not there's a possibility to perhaps do a further feature, dedicated feature with you or something like that, if that's possible. So
I mean, look, let's talk to the ProLite team and then see what they say, and then, you know, make sure you know because we could do something, you know, in conjunction with them, and just, you know, what's happening in China and stuff like that. They've got really good contacts with the suppliers and stuff.
No, it's true, and I'm just really glad that we've made the connection today, and thank you for being so open and telling us a bit about what's going on, and also just for being really positive about everything, which is just lovely. So